Before a single regular season snap has been taken, before a single real game has been played, Todd Monken stood in front of the entire football world and called Shedeur Sanders his captain. One word, and everything in Cleveland shifted. Let's not move past that too fast, because that moment deserves to be understood for exactly what it was. Coaches don't hand out that word carelessly. They don't drop it in a press conference to fill airtime or generate goodwill. Captain is a designation that carries real organizational weight, and when a head coach says it publicly, during a competition that's technically still open, that's not a slip of the tongue. That's a calculated, deliberate statement aimed at every single person in that building and every single person watching from the outside. Every analyst who spent the better part of a year questioning whether Shedeur belonged just got their quiet, firm response. Every fan still on the fence just got their answer. Monken didn't call a big meeting. He didn't release a statement. He used one word, and it hit harder than any speech ever could. But to really understand why that moment matters as much as it does, you have to go back to the beginning of this whole situation, because the Gabriel chapter of this story is not just a footnote. It's the foundation. It tells you everything about how Cleveland got here and why the guy who got doubted the most is now the one being handed the keys. When Gabriel first arrived in Cleveland, the hype around him was real. Analysts were locked in. Fans were excited. Clips were circulating of him looking sharp and confident, and there was genuine energy around the idea that the Browns might have finally found something at the most important position on the field. And then he opened his mouth. Before the real games even mattered, Gabriel made a comment that fundamentally exposed where his head was. He called Shedeur Sanders and others entertainers, not competitors. Now, in casual conversation, maybe that's just poor word choice. But in a professional NFL locker room, that's not shade. That's an insult wrapped in a press conference answer. And the person he aimed it at wasn't some unknown name on a practice squad. Shedeur Sanders was already turning heads. The composure under pressure, the decision-making in tight windows, the ability to stay completely even when the moment got heavy. Coaches were seeing it, teammates were feeling it, and the tape was documenting all of it. So when Gabriel tried to frame him as a showman instead of a football player, it didn't read as confidence. It read as insecurity in a suit. And then the Sundays came. Because the NFL doesn't care about what you say in front of a microphone. Every Sunday, the gap between these two quarterbacks became clearer and harder to spin. Gabriel had moments, a decent throw here, a clean drive there, but when real pressure arrived, things got shaky. Missed reads, stalled drives, decisions that came a half-second too slow. The kind of stuff that makes offensive coordinators quietly lose sleep. Meanwhile, Shedeur was operating like the moment wasn't too big for him. Cool, composed, trusting the process, letting the game come to him instead of forcing it. Week after week, the contrast was right there on tape for anyone willing to look honestly at it. Some media voices leaned hard into the Gabriel narrative anyway, pushing his upside, questioning Shedeur on plays he didn't even mishandle, but the fans weren't buying it because the tape tells the truth whether the narrative wants it to or not. And then it spilled completely off the field. Gabriel's fiancée went onto social media and went directly at Shedeur Sanders. Not playful, not ambiguous, personal and direct and entirely disconnected from football. And Gabriel stayed silent. No public response. No, let's keep this between the white lines. He just let it ride. In a locker room environment, that silence is catastrophic. It tells everyone around you that you're comfortable with the circus, that you're not in control of your own situation. And for a team actively trying to rebuild its culture under new leadership, that was the moment the decision essentially made itself. Because when Todd Monken replaced Kevin Stefanski, everything in Cleveland went into the air. New coach, new culture, new standard, and a giant question mark hovering over every roster decision. Monken answered the Gabriel question without a single word at his very first press conference. With the entire city watching and waiting for some kind of signal, Monken never once said Gabriel's name. No praise. No development language. No, we believe in him. Just nothing. And in the NFL, that particular silence hits harder than any public statement ever could. It tells you precisely where a player stands without anyone having to say it out loud. Monken had evaluated everything, the inconsistency on the field, the unnecessary tension, the personal drama bleeding into team business, and he wasn't interested in managing it. He was looking for a leader. Gabriel wasn't that. Which brings us back to that one word, captain, dropped publicly, deliberately, with full knowledge of what it meant and who was listening. Here's what most people underestimate about off-season training. This is where players actually get sorted. There are no cameras catching highlight moments. No padded practices staged for content. This is early mornings, closed doors, real conversations, and real pressure. Coaches are watching everything. Who walks in first? Who other players naturally gravitate toward when a decision needs to be made? Who speaks up when the room gets uncomfortable, and who goes quiet? These are invisible tests that never show up on a stat sheet, but they matter just as much as anything that happens on a Sunday in front of 60,000 people. Shedeur, by every indication coming out of that facility, is passing every single one of them. And that's what makes Monken's captain designation so significant. He's not predicting what Shedeur might become someday. He's reporting what he's already watching happen right in front of him. Let's also not gloss over how complicated this room actually is. This isn't a clean slate situation where a young quarterback gets handed a free pass and wish good luck. Deshaun Watson is still attached to this organization. His contract, his history, his presence hanging over the quarterback conversation like a storm cloud that hasn't fully cleared. Gabriel is still in the building, still competing, still with every reason to fight for his spot. And right in the middle of all that tension and noise, Shedeur is the one getting elevated. Every throw he makes gets studied. Every rep gets compared. Every room he walks into carries a weight that most players never face in an entire career. And Monken looked at all of that, looked at everyone in that room, and chose to put Shedeur above the rest. That's not a sympathy move. That's not optics management. That's a head coach telling his entire roster that this young man has already earned something real. And here's the part his critics keep finding ways to dodge. Leadership at the quarterback position cannot be manufactured. It can't be faked. It's not about completion percentages in March or who looks the sharpest in a no-contact session. It's about how a room reacts when a specific person opens their mouth. It's about whether teammates straighten up or tune out. It's about the energy a quarterback carries into a building before a single play has been drawn up. Shedeur carries something that is genuinely rare, something players feel, coaches feel, and anyone who spends real time around him recognizes even when they don't say it aloud. That quality is exactly what drives his doubters crazy, because you cannot argue it away with statistic. You either see it or you don't. Monken sees it. He rewarded it publicly. And the fact that he went public tells you the early returns inside that facility are already pointing somewhere significant. But here's the part that deserves even more attention. Being named captain before the season begins isn't just a celebration, it's an examination. Monken might be handing Shedeur a crown, but he could just as easily be handing him a weight and watching to see whether he carries it or gets crushed underneath it. Can he walk into a room full of veterans who've been in this league longer than him and earn genuine respect without it feeling forced? Can he lead grown men when the season turns ugly in November, when the crowd goes quiet and the margin for error disappears? Those questions don't get answered in combined workouts or pre-draft interviews. They get answered in real time, in a real building, with real consequences attached. And Monken is watching the answer develop right now. The fact that he went public with the designation suggests he already likes what he's seeing. Here's the bigger picture most analysts are completely sleeping on. When players inside that locker room watch a young quarterback receive a captain title before a single regular season snap has been taken, it recalibrates everything. It tells everyone in that building that talent alone is never going to be enough to claim the top spot. It sends a message, loud and permanent, that something beyond statistics is being measured every single day. For some guys in that room, that's a genuinely uncomfortable realization, because it forces a level of accountability that not everyone is ready to face. Players coasting on reputation suddenly have to confront the fact that a younger man is outworking them in areas that will never show up in a box score. Gabriel talked his way out of Cleveland. He had the tools. He had the hype. He had media voices vouching for him. But he let his mouth write checks his game couldn't cash, let personal drama invade a professional space, and never seemed to understand that the locker room was grading him every single moment. Shedeur Sanders did the exact opposite at every turn, and now one of them is being called captain of an NFL franchise, and the other one is looking for a fresh start somewhere else. The standard inside Cleveland has been raised before a single game has been played. If you want to stay locked into how this all unfolds, make sure you're subscribed to Brown's Breakout and hit that like button, because this quarterback story is only getting bigger, and we're going to be right here covering every chapter of it. The stage is set. The captain is identified. And the season hasn't even started yet.